So I'm going to be drawing this entire head step by step, talking you through the whole process, synthesizing everything we've been doing in class. We've been focusing on drawing each of the parts of the face independently, so now we kind of want to put it all together into one complete drawing. So to begin, I'm going to lay out the proportions of the head using the Loomis method that we talked about. So I'm going to start with a sphere or circle for the mass of the cranium. Just sketching that out, focusing on good technique. Find my lines, make the adjustment, just has to be as tall as it is wide, not perfect. I'm going to take a 2/3 slice out of that each side because the side of the head is more flat. It's not rounded as the top is. 2/3 is going to be roughly 2/3 the overall size of the sphere, right? So if you were to divide this into three, 1, 2, 3, 2/3 of that is how big you want this to be on the side, and make sure they kind of line up with each other, right? Left and right. Once you have that, you can flatten out your sphere a little bit on the side. Right? You're not trying to take, not totally flat, it's still got a little bit of a curve to it, but it's like it's been squished in on the sides. Right? So I've got that going there. Then I'll place a line across the middle. This is for the brow, which is the bony ridge going across where your eyebrows sit. And then I'm going to put a mark 1/3 underneath and above this. That should fall right in line with the bottom of those slices I took. But really, again, if you were to divide this into three, take 1/3, or really half of this, and put a little mark right in the middle. That's going to be the bottom of your nose. Do the same for the top. That's going to be for your hairline. Next, we're going to add the chin, taking that 1/3 again and dropping it underneath the nose and putting a little bit of a mark there. You can check this on your reference photo. As long as your photo is looking directly at you, it should follow these same proportions. If the head is tilted in a different direction, these proportions will change. You'll find they will not match. But again, so from the brow to the nose is 1/3, brow to the hairline, nose to the chin, that pretty much matches. So I'm going to use that. All right, so now I'm looking to add the chin and the jawline here. Since this is more of like a young kid, it's a little bit more rounded. I want to make sure that kind of flows into the rest of the head. Not too angular. Yeah. I'll give a little indication of the neck. So look for how it connects to the head. Now the shoulders, like here's the chin. The shoulders start right, like just a little bit above. Right? He might be hunching his back just a little bit. Um, I'm not worried about getting everything too perfect yet. I'm just trying to get things in place and give myself clues to work with. All right, so now that I've got some marks to indicate where stuff goes, I can start to place more features of the face. I'll begin by putting a vertical line right up and down the middle. This is for the symmetry to keep things balanced on the left and the right. And now I'm going to look to place the eyes. The eyes sit below the brow line, right about here. That's going to be halfway of the overall head, right? So the eyes are going to be halfway of the overall head. So from eyes to the top of the head, which is below the hair, right? The bone's down here, halfway, the whole thing. Right? It's got a little bit of fluff on top. So if you remember, the brow line here was half of the sphere. The eye line is half of the overall head. Yeah. So I've got my eye line. Now I'm going to look to start placing some marks to get the eyes. It's a lot easier to move a mark if I think I've got it in the wrong place than it is to move an entire eye after I've drawn it. I think that looks good. The distance between each eye should be the same as one eye. So you can really fit another eye in between those two. Okay. Once you've got that, use the techniques we were practicing in class to work in the eyeballs, right? You want to think of the whole eyeball shape. This kid's looking straight ahead. You notice I'm moving back and forth so I can make sure they're kind of similar in size. Looking for the shape of the eyelid as it wraps over that shape that kind of comes close down. And then trying to balance it out on the other side. It's got a little bit more angle, comes a little bit straighter across and dips here and pulls under with a little bit of a, okay. So I've just got the eyelids worked in. I'm not going to add too much detail or shading yet because I don't want to spend too much time on one part until I get other things in place. All right, so I'll do a little bit on this, then move over to the nose, move around, and keep getting everything up just a little bit, and then return back to it and clean it up more. Okay, so following this along, I know that the nose falls on the inside of the eye. All right, so if I take the inside of the eye and bring that down, that's going to tell me about how wide my nose is. Looking at my model, I'm seeing that I think the nose is going to be just a slight bit lower than I've got it drawn right now. So I'm just going to bring my mark down a little bit more. And then I'm going to use the techniques we talked about in class for drawing the nose. So I see the ball of his nose kind of has a bit of a triangular shape to it. You know, it's kind of rounded on top, but it comes in at an angle from either side. And then the nostrils are sitting pretty low. So I'll get that shape in there, right? Just some soft marks to kind of work out the shapes. And then I'm going to look for the individual shape of those nostrils. This one I find has a bit of an angle coming out. And then the actual nostril wraps around. It's low, it's not very tall. And the bridge of the nose is going to be pretty wide. But I'll define that with value after. For now, I just need to get these hard edges and then I can move on. Next are going to be the lips. All right. The mouth is going to fall within the middle of the eye. So if I bring a line down from the middle of the eye on either side, that'll tell me how wide my mouth is. And then if I was to go halfway from the nose to the chin, right, about halfway, that's where my bottom lip should rest, meaning that somewhere around here, the line of the mouth is going to go slightly above that. So let's check this. Okay, I'm going to say it comes in just a little bit, right? So that's my understanding of where it should be. And then I check my reference and see, okay, it's a little bit in from where I expect it to be. So I'm going to make that adjustment. Look for the shape that defines where the lips meet. It's not going to be a straight line. You're going to see a little bit, the curves are either going to move up or down. Might have a little bit of a beak in the middle like this guy does. And then look for the shape of that upper lip. What is the cleft where the cleft of the nose comes down and meets the lip? What is the shape here? Is it a U or a V? What are you working with? I see more of a flattened U shape. Looks very flattened, almost with a bit more of a curve over. So I'm going to say it's more of a curve over on the lip. Yeah. And then for the lower lip, look, see how big the size compares. The lower lip is generally larger than the upper lip, and he's got a pretty strong curve. Sometimes it's very flat. I see a pretty strong curve there. And often with the lower lip, I'm not going to connect it all the way to the corner of the mouth. I'm going to leave it hanging just a little bit open and use some shading to define that edge a little bit more after. I'll move over. Almost forgot the eyebrows. Pay attention to the overall shape and the angle of the eyebrows. And also where they line up on the head. Now they're going to come, some people have theirs shaped so they can have different starting points. Let's see, so it's got a bit of an angle. A little bit of the left one is a little bit thinner than the right. Pay attention to how close they are to the eye. All right, you don't want to have them too far above or too low, close to the eye. Common mistake. And then the ear. Looks like the top of the ear is lining up right in between the eyebrow and the eye, and the bottom of the nose is lining up, the bottom of the ear is lining up right with the bottom of the nose. So I expect it to be in between the eyebrow and the bottom of the nose, but I check that to see how it actually sits. There's a bunch of hair here, but I can see that the top of the ear is starting here. If you can see how the ear connects, you want to draw that. Otherwise, draw what you can see. And you can usually see how it connects on the bottom. Is there a lobe? Does it go straight in? How is that connecting? If it helps, you can draw the ear without the hair blocking it. Let's see, this, I think his head is slightly turned. I'm going to bring this one slightly up. This ear is much narrower. I can't really see the edges, so I'll work with what I can see. And then next would be the overall shape of the hair. Right, so it's kind of got, it's not like, it's not a perfect curve around. There are some bumps and angles in here, so the more you can look for and capture, the more realistic your drawing will be. All right. Okay, good. That's starting to come together. All right. So I've gotten everything in place. I want to step back, take a look at this, see if anything looks way off. Right now, I think I added a little bit too much to the mouth, so I might want to try to downplay that. It's giving a little bit too much of a sneer. And I'm definitely going to work on the nose. I want to put more focus in the eyes. I think the eyes really stand out here. So when I get into adding detail and value, I'm going to make sure I spend my attention there. But in the meantime, I'm ready to start cleaning it up and moving forward. So if you need to make any changes, now is a good time to make them. We'll just sort of evaluate where you're at before spending too much time on one portion. Then you can remove any lines you don't need before moving over to value and detail. So let's say this drawing is, I'm going to put 100% into this, but I'm not going to put 100% into one eye and then 100% into another eye and then 100% into this. What I'm going to do is do 20% on one eye and 20%, 20%. Spread 20% around the whole thing and then bring it up and add another 20% and spread it around and bring it up and do it in stages so that you're not spending too much time on one thing at once. Right, so I think I'll add a little bit more detail to the eye. You can see there's a little bit of a flap. I can start to add that color. Personally, I tend to add dark areas to the eyes first because they kind of, kid's looking back at me and it's a little bit creepy if he doesn't have anything in there. All right, and I'll start to map out some basic value, but this is just placeholder stuff. I'm going to come back and clean this up a lot. Most of his head on this side is in shadow, and the light's on here, so a lot of this area on the left, on the right is going to be shaded in. And the bottom of the nose has some shadow there. Definitely a lot of shadow on the top of the nostril. Looks like the light is actually kind of bouncing off the bottom here. Good. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm starting to bounce around and add little details where I find them. A little bit of value in some spots, but I'm not over committing to one area yet. Round that out. Bring that neck in a little bit. It's out of focus, but got some shadow.